In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
Well, if you have not yet, run, sprint at 4 o'clock, not during the show, but after this show ends, run and sprint to your television and go watch The Many Lives of Lane Kiffin, because I promise you, as a consumer of sports shows and television and with a great appreciation for this conference and the history of sports, I'm telling you right now, The Many Lives of Lane Kiffin, the E60 documentary that just came out, was absolutely terrific. Gerhard, Simone, Patrick joining you on this Thursday. I couldn't remember what day it is. It flies by when you're having fun here talking Southeastern Conference. Guys, the Lane Kiffin documentary out. Gerhard, your initial reaction, and this will dictate a lot of the show today, but just your thoughts after watching that 60 minutes.
I'm going to rewind to 2 days ago. Whenever Lane Kiffin, the Whit Weeks and the Landry Kiffin stuff went up, my spidey senses, my antennas went up about why Lane Kiffin is in the news right now. I'm not saying they were walking hand in hand, because Ole Miss is obviously playing a very, very good LSU team this week, and the documentary was released at the time it was released. But I thought, you know what, this could also be drumming up support for what is, I think, a really, really well done documentary. Got a chance to watch it last night. I was telling you two about it. I was like, hey, I just saw a trailer and I saw a thing on the SEC Network the other day. I just happened to look up and I saw Lane Kiffin in the yoga room, and I was like, what in the world is going on here? And so
I saw that too, I'm not going to lie.
I just watched it and I was like, what? And so then it was a snippet, about 3 minutes. But watching the full hour yesterday, it really crystallizes a career of a coach that we don't necessarily see right now, and his coming of age. And it did a really good job of telling the story of the immature young coach to where he is right now. I thought it was really, really well done. Yeah,
and over the next 2 hours, we're going to have different guests on the show. We're going to dissect this documentary, really dive deep into everything there is about Lane Kiffin, and that includes chatting with Mike Sadie, of course. He's over there with our Memphis affiliate as we reach out to Next Star Nation. So he very closely covers Ole Miss. Of course, that's where Lane Kiffin currently is. And, of course, Ole Miss right now in a top 10 battle that's going to certainly have a huge implication on the Southeastern Conference and what things look like as we move forward with the SEC slate. Then a little bit later, we will hang out with Holden Kruzmark over there with Oklahoma City. And boy, is Oklahoma in the headlines right now because of their quarterback, who is going to be out for the foreseeable in John Mateer. We just found out that he had surgery just this week on that thumb, or on his right hand, I think is what they're officially saying, after an injury in the first quarter of that Auburn game. So several hot topics, several things throughout the SEC as we enter week 5 of the college football season. Like we mentioned, of course, Lane Kiffin, this top 15 matchup in Oxford between LSU and the Rebels. Oklahoma, what the road ahead looks like as they go into the bye week and then play Kent State, can't write Kent State, and then they will be in that big one against Texas. What will the future look like there in Norman? And then typically, in some capacity, of course, Patrick's going to throw in something that has something to do with just golf, or a topic that he really, really thoroughly enjoys. And today it's going to be the Ryder Cup.
He meaning we, because this is a really, really big event.
You know what? Okay, look at you looking out for your guy. I mean, come on.
Thank you, G. I appreciate it.
I've known this guy for 15 years, and in 15 weeks, he's sitting here and you're.
The Ryder Cup and the President's Cup. This is the first time doing our show during main golf in the fall. Here's the thing. Because golf is a spring and summer sport, all the majors are usually done, except once every couple of years you get the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup. This is the first time doing the show during these two. And there's some SEC ties in here. Justin Thomas, former Alabama star, one of the veterans on the team. So I'm thoroughly excited for this Ryder Cup.
Well, I can't wait. We're going to chat about all those things, guys, and much more. Listen, you know what? There's no question that between the three of us, if people are paying attention to what's going on in the sports world and the national landscape more so than anyone else, it's definitely you two. Because neither one of y'all are parents, and there's that part. And then, I'm very tired often because of that, and so I don't really know what's going on. But thank God I have a good friendship with you guys, because you told me yesterday, hey, there's this Lane Kiffin documentary, and I didn't know about it. And so last night, of course, watched the couple-minute trailer that they had out, which you just knew immediately. I mean, one, I just have such an appreciation for great television and great produced television. And honestly, when you have a great story, you have to also be able to tell it in a really, really impressive way. Sometimes that means you tell it in a timeline from beginning to end. And a lot of times that's not how you do it. That's how ESPN chose to kind of relive Lane Kiffin's journey. And it
Yeah.
could not have been more perfect to really be this great summary of what he is, what he was, and what he wants to be in the future. And I was thoroughly impressed. Patrick, I want to give you a moment to just kind of your first initial takeaways where we really dive into different parts of it specifically. But what did you think just from your perspective?
So the first takeaway was how it started, him doing the yoga. And he made a good point where it's like, through this yoga, it puts you in a hard position, and that's something you gotta put yourself in hard positions in life if you want to succeed. And he certainly has put himself in a lot of hard positions. But when I look at the timeline of the events that happened throughout his career, I was young when it all happened. So like I didn't really understand how fast everything moved. Especially the Tennessee bolting for USC, the whole tarmac thing, getting fired on the tarmac. It just felt like one after another, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, man, this guy could not catch a break at all anywhere.
Well, and in a lot of ways, I think that you start to have an appreciation for the timeline that did exist. But I think what you said is a great point. And they really journalistically started it in a great way, in a beautiful way. It gave me chills. I mean, I looked down at my arm and literally had the hair on my arm was standing up when he said, you know, yoga forces you to be in hard positions. And to have success, you have to be able to remain in those difficult positions and really soak them in. And wow, it really came full circle, of course, as we dissect all of this. But let's go back, because Patrick, I think not only do you have to be either young, you also, I mean, in the place that I was in life was I was playing college basketball, and I was just so focused in on what my day-to-day was. When you're a college kid, you don't even know what's going on beyond, you know, either parties or in college athletics. I mean, just right in front of you at Bowling Green State University. I dang sure didn't care what's happening at USC. I didn't care what was happening in the South. I mean, I'm Northwest Ohio. God dang it. I mean, I don't care what's going on. So to go and see how this all replayed, Gerhard, I mean, you were watching this from a fan perspective, and also a guy who was playing football, so you just had a natural instinct and interest in what was going on. Yeah,
I mean, I think every football player, when you come up playing football because you watched it. So you watched Saturdays, college football, you watched Sundays, and you were a part of trying to predict winners and stuff like that. So you're kind of plugged into the game. And so this came out a little bit after I was done at Jacksonville State, but I was still a sports fan. So I was still consuming sports, watching sports every day and stuff like that. Where I agree with Patrick is one of the things that really was kind of a reminder to me is how fast everything went. I forgot the timeline that I was in my head putting at years. I thought there was a couple of year difference between the Raiders and Tennessee. I thought there was a wild difference between Tennessee and USC. No, it was really automatic. It was really, really close. And but no, it really, I love the parallels that it did all together, because playing where I played in high school, we adopted that Tampa 2 defense that his dad ran. So I remember running like a lot of those same concepts in high school. And so all that came back to mind, because I just remember Monte Kiffin being like this godfather figure of defenses that like when you are ranking defensive guys in your mind, Monte Kiffin was the top one. And then obviously his son Lane, but it also helped connect a lot of dots that I did not know really existed, that I forgot that Jamarcus Russell was there when Lane was there.
That was wild, yes.
And the amount of pressure that Al Davis had, and basically almost being lied to by Al Davis.
Talk about wild. That was real. Basically, I mean, that guy, Lord Almighty, we could talk for 2 hours about whatever that press conference, which, again, when you are in my current day Simone, just going back, I wasn't really paying attention, certainly during the time. And then even since then, all you hear is like, there's this guy with the Raiders, he's kind of wild, owns the team, like nobody can win under him because he's just exhausting. Like, you don't really know how things played out. So to be able to see that in this documentary was incredible. I want to go back to how he became a coach. I thought this was interesting. This is really how the entire documentary started off. And we won't divulge everything for people who have not watched it yet, but there's just like basic information things. He was on the depth chart as a quarterback there at USC, and he said that and that David Carr came in, and it was like, okay, he realized quickly, you know, I'm not going to see the field, right? And he got an opportunity to be a coach, and to see how that's kind of how things kicked off. It was pretty cool to see, okay, like he gets thrust into this spotlight from a student athlete, changes the polo. He goes from out of a jersey, puts on a polo. By the way, his hairstyles, this documentary could have been called The Many Hairstyles of Lane Kiffin, because in a lot of ways that was different as well. But he goes and changes. He's like, all right, I'm going to put this jersey up. I'm going to put on a polo for the team picture, because now I'm a GA. I'm going to punt. I'm not even going to try to compete. I'm just going to be a coach.
It's so funny because there were so many names that are still well connected with football. David Carr, people think of him because obviously he was the #1 overall pick, but also too, you associate his career with, like, if you don't give a guy an offensive line, you're toast.
Yeah.
So while he was great in college, it kind of almost saved Lane Kiffin from the perspective of not, you know, going over to who knows what kind of athlete he would have been. But no, it's hilarious how fast he went from athlete to coach. And I thought what was really telling was the fact that, you know, everybody, and I think the reason why it was so fast for him is because everybody that in his mind that was playing football, they all wanted to be the football stars. And he wanted to be Tom Landry. He wanted to be the guy that was the coach. That. And so it kind of let you know that in the back of his mind, he was going to be a coach. I don't know if he knew it was going to be within one day of going from the jersey to the polo, but it was a hilarious
one day. It seemed like it was in like the 1 hour, you know, or like 20 minutes even. But what I found interesting, Gerhard, was how fast everything, the clock for what it was. I mean, at 31 years old, he became the head coach of the Oakland Raiders at 31. He's the head coach of men who are you know, have children who are 10 years older than him. I mean, it's completely wild to think about. In a lot of ways, it was like if you were on the outside looking in, you knew this was going to be the fast path to a train wreck in some capacity, similar to like child stars. That's how I viewed it. It's like when how many times have we seen in Hollywood child stars go get a huge opportunity, and at some point there's a crash and burn, and it's unfortunate as heck. I mean, it is. But when you get thrust into a spotlight and you get these opportunities, and his dad, he said in the documentary, my dad said, I think he joked. He was hesitant. He looked at it the way you were supposed to be looking at it, and I wasn't. And then it turned out to be not a good situation for him. Right. And what I really loved about that moment was also because Steve Sarkisian was right there with them, and then seeing how those two their journeys. That Sark said he wouldn't want the job.
Parallel one another. But yes, he was just so ambitious and so hungry to become a coach. And he wanted to be Tom Landry. He wanted to be the next. So he was like, in my mind, I'm like, duh, of course I would take this opportunity. But being 31 years old and his dad being in the game for so long, his dad was just like, not every job that says HC on it, the head coach is a great job here. Amen. And so the grass isn't always greener just because you're getting paid NFL money. And so to me it was just such an interesting storyline of where he was then, because all of us who are north of 31, myself included, right now, you look back at yourself and you're like, that is so true. It's how ambitious you are at that time.
Oh, and you're taking every opportunity, yes, to all the things, and they have to be the right opportunity for you. And maybe you can't realize that in that moment you don't have the life experience to maybe know that you weren't ready for that. But obviously his dad, who had been around the block a time or two or three or five, was like, hey, pump the brakes for a minute, and ultimately you sometimes have to let your kids go realize that figure out some things for yourself, right? And that's what he did. And we're going to dive into Lane Kiffin's college tenure, which is also very, very notable. And we're going to take a quick break to before we do that. And when we come back, we're going to chat with our guy, Mike Sadie, all of the course running down with Ole Miss, all the things happening there with Lane Kiffin currently, and kind of maybe replay what it was like there in Tennessee, Alabama, FAU. I kind of forgot about that until that was in the documentary, honestly. And that was not that long ago. So, all right, guys, we'll have all of that and much more here in 2.5 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus on this Thursday afternoon. A lot to chat about as we enter week 5 of the college football season. One of the biggest games that will take place this weekend is happening in Oxford, of course, where Ole Miss will welcome in LSU, 2 undefeated teams looking for what could be a season-changing win in the Southeastern Conference. And to chat about that and to continue our conversation about Lane Kiffin, I want to welcome in a good friend of the show, Mike Sadie, joining us from Memphis. Mike, good to see you, man. It's been a minute. It was funny because our mutual friend Chris Priest just texted me about you the other day, and it's good to see you, man. Live and in color. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus.
I know. Over the past few months, I've seen a lot of Simone Eli with everything you did during the basketball tournament for Next Door. So love that. But great to be on the show. I was with Gerhard and Patrick last week. And by the way, guys, I told you if Memphis could run the football and force turnover, they pull the upset, and they did. Crazy game at the Sim in Memphis. But we're here to talk about Lane Kiffin and the big one in the Vaught tomorrow or Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. But you're not wrong. I mean, right now that conference there with what's going on there with Memphis, that entire American Conference is unbelievably talented. A really good possibility that one of those teams will be there in the college football playoff. Mike, before we really dive into this Ole Miss game and talk about this LSU game, I want to chat about Lane Kiffin and this documentary. You mentioned that you had a chance to watch it. It had been overnight, or at least in the last 20 hours because it just got released. What are your initial takeaways just from what you were able to see from his entire career, and then of course now covering him at Ole Miss? What are your first thoughts?
I think you applaud a guy who at first wanted to do things his way and was adamant about that, and now has learned over the last few years that he needed to change and he needed to get the things around him outside of football in balance with everything else. One of the great things, and it was only like the last 10 or 12 minutes of the show, was how well he's become a dad now, and the thing that he wasn't able to do in trying to build up those ranks. Because let's remember, he was so young. Every stop that he made, really. I mean, you're talking about the Raider job, train wreck. You talk about then going to Tennessee and USC and Alabama and FAU. All the stops along the way, he really couldn't be a dad. I'm really impressed with what Lane has done, taking care of himself now and realizing that the periphery matters. It's not just wins and losses. And I think that's why he's got Ole Miss on this trajectory of look out. Last year they were supposed to be a playoff team. This year they're not. But here they are 4-0. LSU comes to town. You beat them. The Mateer injury in the Oklahoma game a few weeks from now. Look out for Ole Miss in that playoff. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year.
It also shed some light to me on just how college football has changed. Not just Lane Kiffin changing, but the fact that he was at USC with recruiting violations and 30 less scholarships because of things that would be just it's a Tuesday today. Reggie Bush asked for money for his guys.
No
it's just it's just so normal. Did you end up watching it in the viewpoint of knowing and watching football for as long as you have and as long as I have, just how much not only this coach has changed, but also the coach and the game that he is coaching has actually changed as well?
Yeah, it's crazy, Gerhard, because right now, all the things that USC and Reggie Bush lost his Heisman for, all of those things, as you said, are now it's, okay, how much? What do you want to do?
No
You're
doubt.
leaving it. All of those things are silly to us now, but back then, but how about the fact that they told Kiffin when he returned to USC, oh, it's going to be a little slap on the wrist. And then all of a sudden he's hit with all those sanctions and still won games. But, the funny comments that Lane only does, like when he took the Tennessee job, we're going to beat Florida. Look what Urban Meyer's doing when he's calling my recruit on campus. And then, of course, the tarmac line.
Yeah.
He took the job. I mean, Lane, one thing that Lane Kiffin hasn't changed from the first time I covered him when he took the Tennessee job to now is he's still great with the media. He has the zingers and the one-liners. As a matter of fact, this week he talks about, hey, you know what? LSU's defense is great because they're getting what they bought out of the portal with the defense it's playing. And so all these little jabs, Lane Kiffin.
ROI is what Gerhard would call that.
Yep.
What was that? I'm sorry?
ROI is what Gerhard would call that.
Exactly. But that's the one thing. A lot of times you got guys that don't want to say too much of anything. I mean, Gerhard, Patrick, we talked about Ryan Silverfield's little jab at Kirby Smart last week when we were on. Those coaches that give you those kind of things, and for Lane, it's pretty much every press conference. He'll give you something that we can really sink our teeth to. So that's the one thing about Lane that he hasn't changed, and in what he does with the media, and kind of he really doesn't care who he's taking little pot shots at along the way. But it was really well done for 60 minutes, and the fact that Lane gave him that opportunity to do that. Because let's forget the other Netflix special that they went around the SEC. Kiffin was one of those coaches that said, I don't want to have anything to do with that one. I want my guys focused on preparing for the season. And yet he allowed that in-depth 60-minute piece. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I want to talk about that. Speaking of press conferences, the press conference that took place in Knoxville when he had a son named Knox, by the way, which Mike, what do you remember about that? Gerhard, what do you remember about that in current day? At the time, I was, in Northwest Ohio, not paying attention to the SEC and not caring. So my remembrance of what Lane Kiffin was at Tennessee was covering Alabama when he was back and just being back in the SEC, what that looks like. So I've only really had it on the after the fact part. But when you think about what those days, then you watch what was taking place outside that office when he held his own press conference and with the most bizarre, but honestly, from a TV perspective, I would not be able to quit recording. I mean, that's incredible. What are your thoughts watching that back? What were your thoughts in real time?
I'll go first here, Mike. I think one of the biggest things, because I was watching it as a sports fan at the time, and as a fan, you just thought, Lane Kiffin taking the USC job, of course.
Yes, it's natural.
Of course. And so I don't know if you were there at the press conference there, Mike, but at the time, looking back on it, I do remember the students rioting, but I don't remember the press conference really being that weird because I was like, okay, of course he's going to take that job. But then he says afterwards, obviously, the reason why you go through what you go through to go to the new job and then go back and thank Tennessee, that's the way to do it. But Mike, you might be able to shed more light there on that.
Well, obviously, being in Memphis, we covered Tennessee very well. I remember that night a little bit. I'm so much older, so I forget things. But I remember when he called that press conference, and you're talking about, 8:30, 8:45 Eastern time. So you're talking about 7:30, and we're almost done with what we're going to do that night. And all of a sudden, what? Kiffin's going to throw a press conference in Knoxville? I thought we were going to hear from him at Southern Cal tomorrow or the next day. So I think they hit on it right. You just never see it. And obviously, you haven't seen it much since. The guy who's
not regular
tries to sneak out the door and say sorry, the fact he wasn't able to tell his players, I know coaches try to do that, but after they do that, they jet set and they say everything right the next day. So what I remember most is it wasn't that long, not a lot of questions, and then the aftermath of a fan base that was excited about what he was building, and then all of a sudden there's just that it's cut off. Now, if we play retrospect and we back up and we think for a second and say, hey, okay, if you don't take the USC job, where are we now with Tennessee and what he's done? Obviously, joining Nick Saban in Alabama really changed his trajectory to where it is now. But you kind of got to think about things because while he did well for a couple of years at USC, it never panned out the way it was supposed to. And you just wonder, had he used those couple of years, those 3 years on Rocky Top, how everything might have been different. But I think it's supposed to be what it is today, learning lessons along the way, learning from the very best in Nick Saban, going to FAU and having to rebuild your mantra and what you're all about. And then Ole Miss going, we're not very good. Let's go for the name, who I think can really change things. And here we are, lo and behold, he's really done well in Oxford and does not want to leave, as we saw, what last year when Auburn came calling, and we saw how close it was had it not been for his daughter. Maybe he is the Auburn Tiger coach.
Honestly, no doubt. I'm sure that Auburn fans are probably watching that and thinking, like, this is what they could have been, or this is what it would have been, and everyone replays the tape on that. I think that one thing that is very, very notable, and you see it in that picture right there, is his need for his dad at these stops, and then his willingness for his dad to say, I'm going to take my career and I'm going to put it aside because I watched my son fail. I mean, again, is he sitting here and saying this? No, I don't want to put words in Monty Kiffin's mouth and obviously rest in peace. This is a guy who's had unbelievable success, incredibly well respected at every level of football. But he said, I'm not going to watch my son fail, and if he's going to fail, I'm going to be right there with him, and I'm going to be the one that's fighting in the battles with him. I'm not going to stand on the sidelines or on a different sideline, literally, and watch him, not do well. And he chose, he said no to several jobs, chose to go be an assistant college football coach with his son at several different stops. And I think that it speaks to not only the type of man Monty Kiffin was, the type of dad that he was, but also the type of young man that Lane Kiffin was in that he really wasn't ready for that level, and he needed his dad to be there on the sideline for him. And then of course what happened at USC. I mean, I teared up watching that part where they discussed, his dad telling him, I'm going to step down. I know that you need to fire your defensive core. I mean, that was hard to watch a little bit, man. I mean, I'm a coach's wife, so I get particularly sensitive about stuff, and I'm a new mom too. So check every box when it comes to just like let the waterworks happen. But I was like, that's hard. I mean, Mike, that was hard.
It was, but one of the things as a dad, and my kids are like y'all's age right now. They're in their upper 20s, and so I would do anything for them. And I haven't done other jobs all because I wanted to be an everyday dad. And I think when Lane at his age got the opportunity with the Raiders, and you guys talked about it in the previous segment, and his dad said, I don't think this is right. And as any 31-year-old would do, mine does it to this day. Dad, I got this. Yep. I know. And that didn't work out. I think Lane realized, look, if I can have my dad with me, I'm still going to be the boss, but I have somebody that I can lean on both on and off the field, and he's going to know more about football than I ever know.
Yeah.
And to have that, and then to have a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator who has seen everything, including college football, say, you know what, I'm going to go help my son. And I venture to guess that most dads, I would, if my son needed me and I could do it, yeah, man, I'll be there for you for your leaning post.
Yeah.
And not forget, a pretty good defensive coordinator. So it wasn't like Lane was hiring me to be the defensive coordinator. His dad knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But you're right. But as the head coach, when you're given that ultimatum of, look, dad or you, that's something I would hope my son would never want to have to decide. And Lane was put in that situation. But I think with the way things turned out with Monty passing away a few years ago, Lane mentioned it. They were able to spend that time together. And even when he was a child, Monty always made him a part. You're talking about an NFL coordinator, and Lane was always there. His dad always made his son a big part of his life, and that was the reason why he made the decision, I'm going to go help my son. Yeah. I've done everything else. So and it was great to see.
And I think that because of who Monty Kiffin was, that there were coaches, i.e. Nick Saban, who Lane Kiffin to that point might not have done much, but I mean, no, make no mistake, Nick Saban is the type of guy who's given several guys a second opportunity. But I think that there are coaches who will say, okay, like I'm gonna make sure you're taken care of, right? And because of my relationship with your dad, or because of my respect for your dad. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. I think that's a great thing. You work every day as a parent, right, to help build a legacy, not for yourself, but for your children. And for him to be able to kind of reap the benefit, so to speak, in a positive way. Because at first he reaped the benefit in a negative way. He got thrust into a spotlight he wasn't ready for. A lot of it probably because of who his last name was, right? Going to the Raiders and then getting these opportunities. He just wasn't emotionally, experience-wise, ready for it to go do. I think that to have a little bit of a payback in terms of like, okay, Nick Saban comes in, he kind of revitalizes his career. He gets an opportunity again. I just think that like that's the type of legacy. That's the way you hope to kind of hand over to your children someday.
Yeah, and I think the coaching profession has always been really interesting. I can't help but draw the parallels to what we're just seeing at Auburn with Stephen Pearl and Bruce Pearl, and what we saw in North Carolina and the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick and Steve Belichick, where you typically see son work for dad, and to see it the other way around, I thought that was just kind of just amazing in and of itself.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, sometimes it gives you it puts you on a platform that you're not necessarily ready for, but to have that helping hand there. And we talked about the parallels throughout this documentary. Patrick beautifully mentioned the parallel of yoga and being put in uncomfortable positions.
Yes.
The other parallel was, hey, I want to be there for my kids like my dad was there for me. I just thought that was really awesome. And Mike, I think that that family dynamic, especially in sports, is almost really unique that you don't see in almost any other profession, entertainment or anything else, where in sports it runs a nice cool through line where it brings families together.
The other thing, though, is remember a lot of times that family name will get you through the door. Like Pete Carroll said, I'm going to give Lane Kiffin this opportunity because I know his dad. But look, all of us know there's more horror stories of those guys who don't make it because of their family name. And think about what happened to Lane, the train wreck in Oakland. Then he goes to Tennessee and makes that decision. Now you got another fan. that could have easily spiraled out of control, and we'd be talking about Lane Kiffin at FAU or App State right now. But all of those learning lessons, and oh, by the way, somebody to talk to like Monty Kiffin to kind of look, keep it focused. You know what you're doing. And then you heard Nick Saban say, he was the right hire for me. Yes, I love Monty, but I wanted to change my offense, and the guy to do that was Lane Kiffin. So Dad's name, his family name might have got him in the door, but Lane did the work and then became an offensive guru to the point where the best college coach ever decided, yeah, I want him to revamp my offense. And then he took that experience, took his licks at FAU, and is now one of the top coaches, not in the SEC, in the country. And when every job opens and you're a Rebel fan, you're like, you keep your fingers crossed that, look, let's let him stay here. No, you told us in the documentary, Lane, you love Oxford, so let's sign that lifetime contract, like Rick Barnes did at Tennessee.
Well, listen, if people didn't love Landry Kiffin in Oxford before now, obviously the hard launch with her boyfriend this week might have been a little tongue-in-cheek, like, all right, but they better love him now, because he straight up said, this is a big reason that I'm still here. This is a big reason why I'm riding through this. And it's no doubt it's worked out a lot of successful seasons. And what they're now hoping for is take the next step into being in the college football playoff. That begins with a huge opportunity this weekend. Mike, Sadie, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, guys, we're going to break down this huge matchup in Oxford between LSU and Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's role in that, what things have looked like offensively with a wild quarterback set up over there, no doubt, for the Rebels. We'll break all of that down here in just 2.5 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back, guys. Southeast Sports Plus, as we continue our conversation with Mike Sadie, joining us from Memphis. Great conversation, obviously, about Lane Kiffin, the documentary that just came out from ESPN. And what a week for it to come out, which I'm sure was done by design, as LSU and Ole Miss will face off in a battle that is sure to have some playoff implications, certainly some SEC title implications, with two undefeated teams trending in the right direction. Mike, you look at this matchup, you look at the opportunity that Ole Miss has here, and you don't think it's too far off from the opportunity and really the game they did have in hand just a year ago.
Right. You know, we just talked about it. Everyone will look back at Kentucky and Florida last year and say, oh, those are the two games that cost Ole Miss a chance to play in the playoff. Well, let's not forget that they went down to Death Valley at night and were pretty much handling LSU and had it done. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter woes and the Tiger magic happened and LSU wins that football game. Not a bad loss, obviously, to a good LSU team, but it wound up to be another one of those marquee wins that you didn't have, that maybe the committee would have said, okay, look, they lost those two, but here's another team that they beat along the way. So that's another game that's Rebels are going to be thinking about. And I know there's a lot of new players. Every team has a lot of new players. But this is also an LSU team that's won 7 of the last 9 meetings between these two teams. Yep. The last 2 have been close, but the Tigers have had the Rebels' number. And I think that's not something that's lost on Lane Kiffin. But now you go into the big question mark of, who's going to be playing at quarterback on Saturday afternoon down at the Vaught.
Yeah, speaking of quarterbacks, one thing they always do in the NFL is if you don't know between two teams, which one you think will win, say both quarterbacks' names out loud and just go with the guy you trust with. That in mind is starting to do a little bit more with the
betting?
SEC. Yeah, honestly, yes, a little bit. But with these two quarterbacks, now that Trinidad Chambliss is the guy at Ole Miss and Garrett Nussmeier, who came in as the Heisman Trophy, one of the Heisman Trophy favorites coming into the season, what are some of the things that you think that both these guys will have to execute in order to get their teams over the hump, given how strong LSU's defense is right now and where Ole Miss is defensively?
Well, Gerhard, let me start with, you mentioned the LSU defense, and take nothing away from that. I mean, they've been playing well under 10 points a game. They're one of the best in the country. But does that Clemson and Florida win really look all that impressive right now? And
so
5 interceptions, you take away the pick 6. Florida's not very good. I'm a Florida grad, and I was hanging myself during that game because Nussmeier, from what you saw the last couple of years, that offense has kind of been running in the mud a little bit. I know they're trying to fill out for the 5 offensive linemen at LSU, but Nussmeier, as you mentioned, came in as a Heisman hopeful. But a lot like Klubnik at Clemson and Lagway at Florida, all of that is kind of washing away. But, a big game for Nussmeier, and he's right back in it. And when you talk about the quarterback situation at Ole Miss, it's every week we seem to get the wrong guy. We're hearing that last Monday before the game against Tulane, Lane was saying, oh, Austin's good, and then he didn't play. And then all week this week it's been Austin's not good, he's not going to play. And I don't think he's going to, but we really don't know. But what I do like about this young man, Trinidad Chambliss, is he doesn't have to do anything differently. Just do what you've been doing the last 2 games. I really can't remember a or a guy that came out of Division II, or a new player coming in, and the bright lights of the best conference in the country have done nothing to him. And again, his first start was against Arkansas. I understand that defense is not very good, but a Tulane team that was coming in riding high, and he had no trouble with either one of those. And when you're talking about which quarterback would I take, maybe I'm going to take the guy that doesn't know he's supposed to be playing this well, instead of the guy who came in with all the hype and has not been playing as well as he maybe should be playing. Yeah. But this is a very good LSU team, and we're going to learn a lot about Nussmeier. We're going to learn a lot about that defense. Is it legit? But we're going to learn about Trinidad Chambliss, and can he do it 3 games in a row? Because do you want to be Lane Kiffin if he has another great game and then all of a sudden your starter is healthy and you got to go, okay, which one am I going to play? I remember a guy named Tom Brady that was on the bench. Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. Bledsoe never gets his job back. Yeah. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, but it's a good problem to have 2 good quarterbacks. And let's not forget that Austin Simmons, he threw 4 first-quarter interceptions in the first 2 games of the season. He was able to rally the teams to win. He's a very talented player, but you got to believe he's looking over his shoulder and telling the trainers, get me back on the field. That guy's just playing a little too well. Yeah,
no question. So many talking points when it comes to the quarterback spot. And like you mentioned a minute ago, this defense will certainly be tested. There's no question about that when it comes to what Garrett Nussmeier has already proven on the big stage and continues to there in Baton Rouge. Let's take a listen to Lane Kiffin this week talking about the quarterback that will be coming up north to Oxford.
No, I think there's difference. And obviously not the quarterback runs like that. But Nussmeier does a great job of getting out of trouble and really quick feet and moving around. And he saved the game last year. Perkins has him to go to 4th and 24 or something, and he gets out of that. That probably would have ended the game. So he did a phenomenal job saving that game last year, and really great savvy player.
So right now on the season, Garrett Nussmeier, obviously, there's a reason that his name was in the headlines in the preseason, obviously continuing in the headlines. I will say there's been a lot of guys whose names were there in the preseason, and then they're no longer there right now in week 5 of the season. So I feel like if you are doing what you're expected to be doing, we're expected to be doing, I feel like this is a good thing, because in current college football day and age, Mike, man, we are seeing so much parity, and we're seeing teams maybe not playing up to what the expectation was or playing up to par for what that program has been able to do. LSU certainly trying to be on the turnaround there under Brian Kelly in year 5. Right now, completing passes at nearly 70% clip. This is a guy who has done just about everything right there for the Tigers. What is your take on how this matchup is going to look for Ole Miss, what they've been able to do off defensively, and are they up for the task here?
I think they are. And the reason I say is because one guy we're not mentioning right now, let's talk about Nussmeier. Yeah, he's done everything you've asked of him to do. But going into the season, I think LSU fans, people around the country expected to see a little bit more. And maybe it's not his fault. Like I mentioned, the changes on the offensive line, and they're not in sync just yet and haven't had to be in this 4-0 start. But, a pocket passer, pro-style quarterback that can get the ball down the field. And let's not forget, he's got a ton of weapons around him. So if they do get in sync, it's going to be a situation where that Ole Miss defense is going to be tested. A lot of transfers on that Ole Miss defense. They've got to get after the quarterback, make Nussmeier move around a little bit and do things he doesn't like to do. But you've heard throughout the year, the LSU coaches have said, look, run the football, tuck it, get 6, get 8, instead of trying to stay there and throw it 30. The difference between 2nd and 4 and 2nd and 14 is a big difference. So that's one thing I've seen him do a little bit more this year. But I do believe that the Ole Miss defense knows that it had struggles against Kentucky, and they really, and Arkansas for that matter, against Taylor Green, but they really shut it down last week against Tulane. Again, Tulane was flying in there, and I did not expect it. I did not expect to see that Green Wave team come in there, and their only touchdown came late in the fourth quarter. Brett Plath got benched because he didn't complete a pass until like the last pass of the first half. I think that's a great springboard into a game against LSU that everybody has circled. And if Ole Miss is going to get to where it wants to be, this is the one that makes believers out of people around the country. It's not Kentucky. It's not Arkansas. It's not the 4-0 start. We've been here before. You've got to beat a name program, and you have a top 5 team coming into your building where you're 30-3 over the last 33 games. This is the kind of game that, I'm sure Lane Kiffin has put a few asterisks next to it a little bit more, because this is a prove-it game.
Yes.
We're going to find out what this Ole Miss team is all about. And I think one thing to focus on Saturday that we haven't talked about is Kawan Lacey, the kid from Missouri. He leads the SEC with 7 touchdowns. The one thing Ole Miss could not do last year, and it cost them a chance at the playoff, was run the football when they had to. Well, Lacey showed you against Kentucky that when they had to run the football, they just give him the ball. One of the top backs, the transfer from Mizzou, 7 touchdowns, take a little pressure off the Ferris State product that's playing at quarterback. Keep an eye on that number 5 in the Ole Miss backfield, because if he can get going against this vaunted LSU front 7, I think that allows you to do a lot of different things with a young quarterback and keep him in rhythm like he's shown the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, you actually hit on my point there, because we were talking about Lane Kiffin at the very beginning of this, and one of the things that he has done so well is develop quarterbacks. We're about to see Jackson Dart start in the NFL largely because of what Lane Kiffin did with him at Ole Miss. With having a young quarterback in such a big game and such a strong running game, do you expect to see Lane Kiffin play a little bit more conservatively and try to run it a little bit more with Lacey, or open the thing up because they are at home, they do have that crowd backing? How do you expect to see from a game flow perspective from such a mind as wise as his is? If
it was me, I'd do exactly what you said and ride the running game. That's not Kiffin. I don't believe he's going to change anything. What he is what he is. And now, I think a few weeks ago, he's scratching his head going, what am I going to get from this guy? Now he knows what he's gotten from this guy. He has not thrown an interception. So Trinidad has been given an opportunity, and he has taken advantage of it. And I think what that does is it tells your coach, trust me. And I think Lane's going to trust him. But what the difference is what we've seen in the last few weeks. If Ole Miss can get a lead, if Ole Miss especially can get a 2-score lead, then they're going to try to grind up that clock and say, Lacey, take us home. But again, much more difficult to do against an LSU team. I think the points are going to be at a premium. I think that I don't think either team's going to get really away from one another. So Trinidad Chambliss is going to have to make plays, and that Ole Miss defense is going to have to make that one stop. Because one of the things about Nussmeier, he doesn't make very many mistakes. So you're going to have to make that one stop. If it's a fourth down stop, if it's a turnover, if it's a pick, if it's a fourth, on downs. There's going to come a time in that game where the Ole Miss defense is going to have to make a play against one of the elite quarterbacks in the SEC and an offense that you don't want to see flip the switch when they're playing against you. But again, I am all in on Trinidad Chambliss until he shows me that he's a guy that was, winning the Division II Heisman and was leading them to a couple of Division II national. It's a Division II Ferris State guy that none of us were talking about at the beginning of the season. It was all Austin Simmons. The kid has just taken the opportunity and run with it. So I'm going to ride with him until he shows me that he's not up for the big moments, and he hasn't showed me that so far.
Lane Kiffin said take the over. Point to the premium, Mike. I don't know. All I know is that Lane Kiffin, he put that on record on Twitter.
Have you ever heard Lane Kiffin not think that the score was going to be 52-51? Now, again, a couple of years ago, it was 49-46 or somewhere in that where a knockaway in Oxford allowed the Rebels to get out with a win.
Yeah.
I think you have to talk defense with a team, with an offense that's not maybe doing what it's supposed to or up to its level with LSU and a dominant defense and an Ole Miss team that's still riding a young man that really hasn't played in the bright lights of Division I. That defense is going to have to make plays. But am I going to be surprised if it's 47-46 in double overtime? Absolutely not, because it's Lane Kiffin.
All bets are off, man. It's college football. It's the SEC. It's you name it. It's Oxford. I mean, we've seen wild things. We've seen wild things happen there.
And let's
not forget, the Grove.
We've talked about Lane Kiffin all through this, but Brian Kelly, he still needs one of those signature wins.
Clemson wasn't
every
it.
year. It seemed you have.
Clemson was not it, Mike.
Yeah. What?
We thought Clemson was it, and Clemson was not it.
Yeah, that wasn't it, and obviously Florida wasn't it. He'll get his opportunities, but maybe this is the year that Brian Kelly proves that he can take a team with the talent and make the playoff and make some noise. But if that is this team, you should go into Oxford and beat Ole Miss. And as you heard me before, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be an LSU letdown because the young man from Ferris State is going to lead the to another win.
Mike says, give me some Chambliss, guys. Put some money on it. I am putting money on this. Speaking of which, right now, Ole Miss is a 1.5-point favorite. This is I talk to you all the time about lines, and I really never know what you're talking about, honestly. But what does this line tell you? Because where am I putting my money? What am I deciding here?
Well, keep in mind, this line has crossed the zero. This line opened with LSU as the favorite. And it crossed the zero, and now Ole Miss is a slight favorite. So they're saying, hey, Chambliss, they believe Chambliss is the guy now that they know who it is. The money, at least early on in this week, it might, now the public might flip it back the other way when the money comes in on tomorrow and coming up on Saturday. But Mike hit it last time as far as betting on Memphis just last week. He was talking about, hey, if they can run the football, bet on this underdog team. So it's an interesting handicap, and the money is flowing in a really interesting way as well.
Well, the thing that I talked to my guys, and when we did our preseason special on Ole Miss, we talked about, would you rather be the team that was upset to not make the playoffs last year with something to prove, or would you rather be the Ole Miss team that people are slighting because of the losses of Jackson Dart and Walter Nolan and all of these NFL draft picks? And, the consensus was, let's be that team that maybe people don't think that this is our year. Yeah. And what have you seen over these first few weeks? It doesn't matter if it's ugly or pretty or dominant or not, or our starters hurt, who's this guy from Ferris State. Yep. Whatever the storylines are coming out of Oxford right now, they've been under the radar, but they're not anymore. Here comes the Bayou Bengals into the Vaught, a 2:30 game. Everyone's talking about this game on a weekend that has Georgia and Alabama and has Tennessee and unbeaten Mississippi State. There's some other games, but a lot of people are focused on this one because I think they want to see which team is legit. Yep. Which team, not just Ole Miss, which team is legit? Which team is going to be one of those 3 to 4 SEC teams that make the playoff?
Yep, no doubt.
Because I think there's questions on both sides of this. And Ole Miss had the team last year, didn't get it done at home. I don't think that Lane Kiffin's going to let that happen again. If this thing falls apart, it falls apart at Oklahoma or, some of these road games that are still. I don't think that Lane Kiffin is going to let his team in an opportunity like this have another one of those losses that at the end of the year you're like, we had.
How did this get?
Right.
They were at home, we just didn't get it done.
No doubt.
That's how high I am on Ole Miss. And yeah, Simone, I'm going with Trinidad. I'm going to ride him.
Listen,
Unless Lane does what Lane does, and all of a sudden Austin Simmons starts the game on Saturday. Because it's good to go.
Just out of like pure arrogance of saying, you know what, I'm not going to let someone else break this news for me or whatever it was, the McAfee and all that stuff that went down. But Mike Sadie, appreciate your time, sir. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much for 2 extended segments talking Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. We will definitely have you on next week to recap whatever happens there at the Grove, at Oxford, and as we move forward into the SEC slate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
All right.
Thanks,
Good
Mike.
stuff. Mike Sadie joining us there from our affiliate in Memphis. We're going to take a very quick break, and we will be right back as hour number 1 here on Southeast Sports Plus comes to an end. See you in a minute. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. Been a very, very quick an hour there on Southeast Sports Plus, guys. And just want to give a huge shout out to Mike Sadie for joining us for the last 45 minutes. We signed everybody up for about 15-minute blocks, but it was just so good. I didn't want to go watching or listening to him talk, guys. Honestly, it was great.
Absolutely, he brings so much knowledge, and he still he can remember the past part of the game, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But also the current. And just last week, if you were listening last week, he nailed that Memphis Arkansas that handicap to a T.
That's crazy.
And looking to see if he does the same thing this week.
Yeah,
Man, he's just got that infectious spirit
Yeah, he
about
does.
him. Whenever
Yeah.
he starts talking, he puts some emphasis behind those words. It makes
Yeah.
gets me fired up a little bit.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, it's always good that when you're in the middle of hosting a show and you get lost watching your show, that you're doing something right. Because I'm like, Oh yeah, we got to break. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, that's really, really insightful, Mike. I'm like, oh shoot, we're about to go over time here, so we're about to do it again. I mean, just listen to you guys. But all right, man, we're gonna take a quick break here on Southeast Sports Plus. Hour number 2, some injuries, how they're going to impact several teams throughout the SEC going into Week 5 of the season. We'll chat about that and much more. As man, we have a heck of a sports week coming up this weekend, guys. Get your popcorn ready. Get a cold one or two. Make sure your kid's going to bed early. Watch some ball. We'll be right back in 2.5 minutes. Stay with us.
Outbound transmission?
Affirmative.
Crew ready?
Check.
Signal lock?
Check.
Downstream stations online?
Linked and locked.
Let's light this candle.
Flame on.
In 3, 2, roll show open.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Hour number 2, Southeast Sports Plus. Simone, Gerhard, Patrick joining you. Big injury news. We've had something about every single day this week going into Week 5 of the college football season. This one from the Plains, where Horatio Fields is out indefinitely due to a broken foot. So the Auburn Tigers going to be without one of their main receiving threats. Of course, we know they have several guys at receiver who are talented and trying to work around the Hugh Freeze offense and what they're doing there under Jackson Arnold, his first year there on the Plains as well. Gerhard, your first takeaways from this Horatio Fields injury?
Well, it really, really stinks because I think the wide receiver group is typically known as a group that is it's almost one-on-one. It's isolation. It's basketball on grass. You're out there and it's 1v1. It's you versus the corner or you versus the safety. With Auburn, it felt more of like a collective because Cam Coleman is probably one of the best in the entire country.
Yeah.
But the reason why Cam Coleman is so good and the reason why his counterparts are so good is because a lot of times he takes the safety over the top. He has the corner, then he gets that safety to go over the top to help in coverage. It leaves the middle wide open for guys like Horatio Fields, like guys like Eric Singleton Jr.
Yeah.
And so this group felt more like a collective, like you said, with a new quarterback in Jackson Arnold.
Yes.
How do they now try to rebalance with this wide receiver room, still with Cam Coleman there on the outside going up against Texas A&M, who just gave up a lot of points this past week. So we'll see if Auburn can get some offense going there in College Station.
Yeah, let's take a listen to head coach Hugh Freeze. Let's take a listen to head coach Hugh Freeze really quick about how this could possibly impact Auburn moving forward, what the offense looks like as they head over to College Station to play the Aggies.
People can criticize. They're going to whether I throw it downfield, then I don't run it enough. So, I mean, the criticism's coming. It doesn't matter. I always knew we could. Just like there's things we saw Saturday again from the Oklahoma defense that we hadn't seen in the 3 games and people hadn't seen in us in 3 games. That's what coaches do. So I was very confident that we could push the ball down the field, and it is good, obviously, to see them do that and have success. The crazy thing is we should have hit 2 more that I think changed the game. I mean, you got to make those plays, and in one of them, Cam changed gears, and if he never stops, I think he runs right through it for a 75-yard touchdown, and then obviously the one where he's 7 yards behind the defender and for a touchdown, and we don't hit him. Those games swing on, and that's as poorly as we played on special teams, and yet we still had a chance to win the game, among other things that happened. So there's a lot of positives there, but boy, we got to make more of those. But it was good to see us push it down the field.
Several things to take away from that comment there from Hugh Freeze. One of them is that he regularly tries to give media members, fans, call it what you want, but people on the outside an inside look at what it takes to coach football, and that maybe folks who aren't in the room preparing don't exactly know what all is going on, and that also as a viewer, I was waiting for him to say that Jackson Arnold overthrew Cam Coleman. Well, I didn't watch Cam's route. All I saw was the ball was overthrown in that, and I thought, okay, this is on the quarterback, and he's sitting here telling us, hey, no, he shifted gears in the wrong direction. I mean, down. He slowed up. He held up. He wasn't running right through this route, and that's why I didn't go for touchdown. So sometimes we're not all as smart as we think that we are.
Well, and I think because quarterback and receiver is such a timing, connection. If you don't know the insides of that, you just watch the result on television. If you watch a ball sail over a guy's head, you draw a certain conclusion that might be right or that might be wrong. But if you don't know it, unless there's a guy that's telling you, hey, this is the play design, this is the play call, this is what's supposed to have happened, no matter what you're doing, yelling at your television screen, Hugh Freeze is telling you, okay, no, it's not all instances where Jackson was off on this guy. But it goes to show you just how much the quarterback and the receiver have to be on the same page. And it really, really is beneficial, and especially in these early games, because all these are like a very new relationships. And you see him and Cam, for the most part, are getting it right and getting the timing right. It's just now can they do it with an extra guy there, wide receiver number 3 going into this week.
And can they do it consistently? And so going into this week, Perry Thompson is going to fill that number 3 receiver role. This is a guy, Gerhard, that we know very, very well. Former local star. You'll see highlights of him right here, playing for the Foley Lions just a few years ago, and boy, was he dominant. A man among boys a lot of the time in his games here, playing in Class 7A Region 1. Perry certainly knew how to make everybody look good on the field. I mean, like that play right there, you could call that an overthrow, and then he was able to bring it in. And again, sometimes when it comes to going in and making the transition from high school to college football, you got to get the right system. You talk about timing. you got to get the right time. You have to get the right quarterback. You have to get the right coach and coordinator. And, has it been Perry going and being this huge, dominant receiver threat at Auburn to this point? No, but sometimes you just need an opportunity, and this might be an opportunity where he gets to go step into a bigger role.
Yeah, you saw it there on that graphic that he was a 5-star. He was one of the best high school football players coming out of Foley High School, and everybody thought, oh man, you have Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman.
There were Julio Jones references. I know Julio went to Foley, but that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's a big body, 6'3", 220 pounds is what he's officially listed. And
he's a big guy.
He's a huge guy, and so you had him, and you had Cam Coleman, and it just looked like Cam Coleman was able to process it and get into the college game a lot faster.
Yep.
Perry last year, he did in the Alabama A&M game have a deep 70-yard bomb, but that felt like it was like grand opening, grand closing. It was like the biggest thing of last year, but now you mentioned the opportunity has knocked again. Can he now walk through it?
Yep.
And if you can, it is just like you saw last year. And
did this guy have his chin strap on? I mean, how many times did we I'm sorry,
off.
Gerhard. I'm interrupting you, but I mean, that dude could not keep his helmet on. I'm just telling you.
I remember that from last year. His helmet could not stay on. It was him and a few others. But also,
I mean, he's lucky he's not hurt. Maybe that's why never mind. I'm not gonna say that. Maybe Coach Freeze is like, dude, get your helmet figured out. I'm just kidding. But listen, it's a great opportunity for Perry. There's no doubt. And what a game to get started, to get your first your big opportunity in the SEC, because you're going to play a Texas A&M team that feels pretty good about life right now.
Yeah, they have to feel good about life, especially on offense. But guys, I heard and I saw an interesting thing. I know obviously Texas A&M this past at Notre Dame, they gave up 41 points, 42 points there, no, 41 at Notre Dame. And gave up 22 to Utah State and 24 to UTSA. So Auburn's offense has to be licking their chops. But I did read a quote from Mike Elko that I want to get y'all's opinions on.
Okay.
Because I thought this was really interesting. I just now saw it.
I just love giving opinions on coaches' takes.
But he was talking to the Houston Touchdown Club. And one of the things he said was, Arkansas, one of the great things that Courtney Mims talks about is how Arkansas fans consider themselves like the champions of almost. Like, they're almost good. They're almost
that was
this,
it took me a minute to figure out what she was saying.
Yeah.
Because can't relate in Alabama. But I was like, oh.
But it seems like Texas A&M fans, and we'll probably have to ask Parker this, afterwards, Parker Ream, that they're almost like reluctant to celebrate big wins because they're like, what's coming around the corner? So a lot of them were like, yes, we're happy about beating Notre Dame in South Bend, but they weren't necessarily overjoyed. He tells this to the Houston Touchdown Club this past week or last week during their bye week. You have to if you love Texas A&M football, stop being scared and get excited about what this program's doing. It's not fair to look at past failures and eliminate how you feel about where Texas A&M football is going. I feel like Texas A&M fans are like, they're really, really excited about this start so far, 3-0. But they're like, oh no, Auburn's coming into town. This game is really interesting. I just thought that quote was really interesting to tell. Basically, there's a lot of boosters there, I would suppose, in the Houston Touchdown Club there that support Texas A&M football, to tell them to their face, don't be scared.
Well, for several reasons. I feel like Texas A&M, the thought process of Texas A&M in the SEC has taken a huge shift just in the last year and a half because of the Texas and Oklahoma newcomers to the SEC. It revitalized an opportunity for there to be rivalries. It kind of gave A&M an opportunity to be good. I mean, they could have been good, but now it gives them a platform to be good, right? Because beforehand it was like, I mean, wow, that's all the way out in College Station. It's like the westernmost team, they're good for like 4 minutes and then they're not. Like, that's all checks all those boxes. And I think that what Mike Elko is trying to say is like, hey, I'm not some big like on the radar type head coach. I'm not a guy who's got this huge resume of like, I'm solid. I'm solid. I don't come with the glitz and glamour, but believe in what we're doing, because that's like 90% of the battle. And if someone's got to say it. If the head coach does not say it, who's going to believe it, right? If the guy who's leading the charge in a room or to fans is not going to say it, bet on us, feel good about us, then who's going to be the guy leading the charge on that? He's got to be able to do that. He wants people to say, hey, okay, we can be a national championship contending team.
I mean, I want to believe him. I mean, we did just see him field punts.
Honestly, that video was unprecedented.
That was legendary video. But I think I made the joke on the show before that it's so hard to play at Kyle Field that Texas A&M even loses.
Yeah.
I feel like 8-4 is just
See,
to me,
and to me, that's what Mike Elko said.
I'm a great Aggie fan.
Well, the good news is he's not wearing a 12th man shirt, so like he can say that.
But Mike Elko is saying what you're saying. Yep. He is saying that fans come into the thought process of we're going to be 8-4.
Gerhard, I can't fault them because I'm a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. So until the Dallas Cowboys do something, I'm
Once
going to be like,
twice shy,
here
as
we
they
go.
say. Once bitten, twice shy. I do think that right now, I mean, A&M, and I don't just mean this because they're 4-0, but they've done everything right. I mean, Gerhard, you didn't give them a prayer in any Catholic belief that they could go to Notre Dame and win.
No, I did not.
You didn't think Marcel Reed was going to go in there and see the golden helmets and he was just going to...
I thought Freeman's defense would eat him up.
Yeah. And, well, there was 81 points on the board there, so there was no defense in any capacity, and there was no hold in being able to, hold field goals either. But listen, I just think that when you look at the opportunity that lies ahead, I mean, they're back-to-back home games. They're at home for the next 3 weeks, and Kyle Field is a hard place to play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has as much glitz and glamour as it did when it was one of the only stadiums that was 100+ strong when it comes to just the capacity and how loud it was. I mean, A&M is weird.
Mm-hmm.
They do the weird chanting thing.
The midnight yell.
They do that's like the night before. They do that.
Yeah.
I went to that once. And it was weird.
Yeah.
It was as weird as it looks when they posted on Twitter, and it is definitely all of that in a bag of chips. But I just think that, wow, right now, to be 4-0, to be up against an Auburn team that right now feels kind of done wrong, I don't view that as like hey, they're going to come in fired up. From we're an Alabama standpoint, I certainly hope it fires up Auburn, but I just don't view Auburn as like this huge threat going into. If anything, I think the momentum of A&M is greater than the letdown or disappointment of Auburn right now.
Yeah, from an energetic standpoint, I do agree with that. I think that both teams come in with confidence, but in a different way going into this football game. But obviously Auburn is coming off of probably a little bit more of anger going into this matchup. But I honestly think that if you're Texas A&M, this is your coach is telling you, hey, look, your fans don't believe in you. You have people like Patrick Walsh, and he's not alone, that say, chalk up 4 losses. We're going to lose 4 games no matter what. The constant failures when Jimbo Fisher was there, it's like, hey, we have a national championship program. We just cannot get over the hump. This is a perfect time for them to say, hey, no, it ends now.
Yeah.
It started 2 weeks ago against Notre Dame. It can continue right now. So I think if you're Texas A&M right now, you have to be feeling pretty good about yourself, despite the fact that your defense is giving up a million
Patrick,
points.
pull up a 3-shot really quick. So I want you to answer a couple things.
Okay.
And all I want you to do is say one word. All I want you to do is say one word. Every time that I just want just one word. I want you to say win or loss.
Rapid fire.
That's all I want you to do. I don't want you to think about it. I just want to say win or loss. I don't want to think about the statement you just made, anything like that. Just win or loss, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A&M State.
Loss.
He's not. He had to. You see his eyes. He thought about it because he's waiting for me to make my point.
No.
He's trying to keep me from being
No.
great. Auburn.
No.
Auburn.
Win.
LSU.
Loss.
Missouri.
Loss.
Florida.
Win.
Arkansas.
Win.
South Carolina.
Win.
Texas.
Loss.
Okay, so he just wanted to get to 4. He was just trying.
No, that was his rapid.
Actually, what?
First of all, I don't even think that you believe what it is that you're saying right now. I just don't believe.
What?
So okay, the state is at home. So that's 2 weeks from now. Okay, so they're going to be at home against Auburn.
Here's my thing. You can guarantee A&M or A&M will guarantee you 1 loss that makes you shake your head.
They have no business losing.
Yes.
I feel like they do that every year.
Well, and I think that Mike Elko is trying to convince people otherwise. Here's all that I'm going to tell you right now. Is that if on October 20th, we're sitting here and A&M is going to LSU and they're 8-0, I'm not going to be surprised. Look at the road ahead for this team right now. They're at home against Auburn. They're at home against State. They're at home against Florida. And they're at Arkansas. Yeah. If you tell me that the path to 8-0 for Mike Elko is not right there, in fact, my opinion, I would probably say y'all's betting lines y'all are so obsessed with probably wouldn't be too far off that to be able to say, yes, they would go into October 25th week against LSU in Baton Rouge and be 8-0.
We're only obsessed with betting lines because it's the great equalizer, number one.
He just had to make sure that he got some digging back at me about my little.
Because it's like your betting lines. It's like, number one, it's not ours, but it does let you know where the odds makers think that these things are. And I think that you're running over the State game in a way that we'll find out a little bit more about State this weekend. We'll find out more about State this weekend.
What? I agree with you on that.
It's not the same two-win State.
All I'm
team.
saying
It's not
is
the same State team.
Oh, I mean, first of all, I'm gonna go find in the archives when we did the over/under how many wins and losses they're gonna have, and I'm pretty sure both of you guys said there's no way they would take 3.
No. Go back and look it up.
I'm gonna find it.
Go back and look it up.
I know what you said.
You know what I said?
I like Shapen.
I
like Shapen going into this year.
You liked State going into this
I
year.
like Shapen. Yeah, like their quarterback situation with Blake Shapen and Jeff Lebby. I did not know that they'd be 4-0 through 4 games, but I did like the fact I did like the momentum that they had going into the season. So for sure.
So let's just say that Tennessee wins, because I think that they do. Right? The Mississippi State hosts Tennessee this week. I think Tennessee wins. I think there's a better chance than not that A&M beats Auburn. So who are you guys taking in that game the next week?
The A&M Mississippi State game?
Yeah.
I'll still take A&M. I'll take A&M in that game. Yeah.
And you're taking State on the road.
I like State.
Okay.
I really do.
He doesn't even believe the words coming out of his mouth as they're coming out of his mouth right now. I can just tell you.
I mean, I came in here.
You know what?
I said Florida
He's
State's going to cover week 1.
He's going to stand on business.
And then everyone's like, no, there's no way.
I feel a side bet here.
That has nothing to do with this.
I feel a side bet. Let's just say both
I'll do
teams
a bet
will
right
win.
now. If I had cash.
Wait till later. We're making you a parlay later.
I mean, I say a side bet right now because you don't know if one of these quarterbacks is hurt or whatever. But this time next week, I think if both teams, whether both teams win or lose, I think a side bet between Mississippi State and Texas A&M should be on the board with you two.
Yes.
I really think so.
I'll take it right now.
I like it. I like it.
I'll do it right. I'll do it right now. I'll do it right now.
Let's make sure.
I'll do it right now.
Let's make sure everybody stays healthy.
I ain't worried about quarterbacks. I'll take them right now. You take them right now?
Texas A&M's back up.
Regardless, I don't even know who it is. I don't even care. I don't even care. Give me Mario and Craver and the guy from Birmingham, and give me some Mike Elko, former Bowling Green assistant coach, and let's go. Let's go. Loyalty don't die over here, guys. We're gonna take a break because we are definitely over, and I am over this conversation. Just wait, Aggies 8-0 in a few weeks. Not that strong. All right, guys, we'll be right back in 2.5 minutes. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. Heated conversation going down here on the program as we preview some Week 5 games. And as we preview Week 5 games, Gerhard, there are several injuries going into this week. None bigger than the news we got out of Norman, Oklahoma. And from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, we're going to welcome in our guy Holden Cruzmark, who has hopefully catch his breath from a wild week. There's no way you caught your breath, bro. But the things that are going on in the sports world in Oklahoma right now, between the weekend, what's happening, of course, with Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, and then figuring out that, of course, they don't have a quarterback right now. And Norman, I mean, how are you doing on this Thursday? There's not a lot going on.
Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind. I mean, I was at home on Tuesday trying to enjoy a nice day off. Had started a load of laundry, and then all of a sudden,
Guy can't use laundry.
Mike Gundy's fired.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then, as we're all scrambling to get everything on, all of a sudden, oh, by the way, John Mateer's having surgery on his hand. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Yep. Thanks, guys. We really picked a winner of a day here to do all this stuff. So
let's start with John Mateer, because I do want to revisit Gundy for sure. This was a situation that I think surprised a lot of folks, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention in the game, but it's not like he wasn't playing throughout the entire 4 quarters there against Auburn. Was there anything trickling out, Holden, in terms of like news of, is there something possibility going on maybe after a practice or over the weekend? Did this just kind of get put out into the spotlight in the way that did?
Yeah, and OU's off this week. They've got a bye week. So, there was no inkling, no nothing. Mateer, they said he got hurt in the first quarter. He finished out the game-winning drive, as everybody knows. And then, he came in, did his post-game press conference with us. No brace, no nothing. Made his joke about how he's different than Johnny Manziel, and, everything's all fine and dandy. We're all laughing. They just beat Auburn. They're, cooking so far this season. And then out of the blue, hey, he's getting surgery on his hand. Yep. Okay, where did that come from? Apparently, in the first quarter, some play, he broke his thumb, had thumb surgery the other day. He just tweeted out just a few, maybe like a couple hours ago, that everything went well. And one of the things that was kind of funny here in Oklahoma is a lot of the fans found out who the doctor was that was going to be performing the surgery, and they were hyping this doctor up, and it was quite the scene on Twitter. Just scrolling down, people photoshopping this doctor's face onto all these people and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny. There was even an OU fan living in Los Angeles that dropped off a care package for John and the doctor at Cedar Sinai, the hospital that he was getting the surgery at. So people are having some fun with it. I guess you could say maybe it's a coping mechanism for the fact that Mateer's going to be out for a few weeks, and it really kind of puts a damper on what's been an exciting start to a turnaround season and everything.
And I feel like it's exciting on multiple fronts, because it wasn't just Mateer. It was the fact that Ben Arbuckle was coming down with his offense, and these two were a package deal coming together. And you've talked at length, and we've talked about it on this show, about just how much their chemistry and their symmetry is really aligned, not through just fall camp, but through these first few games. Now that it is Michael Hawkins Jr. coming in, he obviously has experience. He's played against SEC opponents, but do you expect Arbuckle and Hawkins to have the same dynamic? Have they built that enough in fall camp where they can seamlessly go over the next few weeks without Mateer and the offense still look relatively the same?
I don't think so. But I think that's what the bye week and this Kent State game will kind of help do, is kind of solidify some more chemistry between Michael Hawkins and the new play caller. Arbuckle actually was the play caller in the bowl game against Navy. He had already come over from Washington State at that point, and Hawkins played quarterback in that game. So they have a little bit of experience in that way, but the entire off season, these first few weeks, has been geared towards Mateer and everything with that. So it's going to take a little bit. Luckily, the schedule broke out pretty nicely for them, and the timing of all this worked out pretty nicely for them. Just the fact that you have a bye week and then you have Kent State, and Hawkins did start against Texas last year, so he has the experience. He won't be completely overwhelmed, but also they played really poorly offensively in that game. So it'll be interesting. And, the Kent State game, hopefully you get enough things ironed out and, you start to feel a little bit better. One thing that'll be interesting is just the fact that they haven't been able to get the run game going at all this year. And, that really hasn't mattered too much because Mateer's just been able to dice everybody up through the air and, also kind of do it on the ground himself. So Hawkins is a great athlete. He's really good. He's really fast, great runner. Maybe not the best passer. He's not quite to Mateer levels on that. So it'll be interesting to see if, they could finally get that run game going to help him out. And I think they might use a little bit more quarterback run, kind of like what they did with Mateer in the Michigan game. But also Hawkins is so fast that you can get him out on the perimeter a little bit more, kind of hit the edges and everything like that.
Obviously, when you look at a month out, there's no game that sticks out more than the Red River. And just to think about wanting to see both teams' best. I mean, from a standpoint of us here, you just want to see both teams put the best of what they have in that program out on the field. And it seems as though, unless there's something I'm not reading, that John Mateer will not be on the field for that game. We don't really know yet still what Texas is. I mean, obviously they're playing well. They have one loss outside of SEC play, and there's a lot of football left to be played. But how much does that kind of just put a damper a little bit on just what that game is going to be? And I know that a rivalry is a rivalry, but when you don't have all your guys and you're not at, full fire, that's kind of a disappointing situation, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And especially considering just the fact that Texas has whooped OU 2 of the last 3 meetings, with the first year of Brent Venables with Dylan Gabriel being out with a concussion and Davis Bevell being about the worst quarterback OU's ever started in a game in their history. So that was a damper. Then Dylan Gabriel comes back the next year. You have the great finish with the game-winning touchdown. And then the next year you have the whole Arnold getting benched and Hawkins starting. And, I think in 2 of the 3 years, Brent Venables his offense has scored 3 total points in 2 of those games. Yeah. Getting shut out his first year and then only putting up 3 on the board this past year. So that really, and I don't think anybody was expecting, I think going into the season, pretty much anybody was expecting OU to lose that game. But then by the way they've been playing this year, just the excitement that's been building up, just seeing how this team looks so much better, people were starting to believe, hey, we got a chance. Like, the way Texas has looked a little bit at times this year, you're like, OU could actually, win this game. That's not out of the possibility, sure. Beginning of the season. You're like, yeah, probably that's definitely one of the losses that they're going to, incur. And now we're kind of maybe back to that point where you're like, oh, they'll probably lose this game, but then, maybe you get Mateer back for, the week after that or the week after that. I kind of think the Ole Miss game is maybe a realistic
sure.
expectation for him to get back to, which would be about a full month after the surgery. And so that, to me, that seems kind of like a reasonable timeline. Yeah. I know people have brought up that a few years ago, Jared Goff, when he was still with the Rams, had kind of a similar thumb surgery. Same doctor performed the procedure, and he played in a playoff game like 10 days after that surgery, but he also didn't play very well. So I don't know that they necessarily want to try and get Mateer back as quickly as Goff came back, but at least a little bit of hope that, Mateer can come back maybe sooner than you would think or expect.
Yeah, and I think that it was one of those things where when we know that you can be in the college football playoff with more than 1 loss, and you really want to make sure that you have that guy hanging around in November, in December, and hopefully, a little later than that, do you want to push it, or are you willing to take a loss or risk an opportunity to have a loss? Gerhard, I feel like that's like that right there. If you're looking at that gamble, I mean, I'd rather, say, hey, we'll deal with this right now so we're not dealing with more problems later by trying to rush him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you have to try to play it conservatively, not just with the hand injury, but maybe even game to game. And that's one thing I wanted to ask Holden, because we've talked about Jaden Knott really since the time that he stepped on campus, and he still doesn't have a carry, I don't think. Do you think that they open up this running game a lot more and, like you said, almost just kick the can down the road and win a 10-3 game, a 10-7 game, a 14-10 game if you have to, just to be able to try to stack some wins together, or maybe go into thinking that, hey, when we plug in Mateer again, we might have a loss on the season. How do you expect them to play it as far as just on the field?
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a time to finally unleash Jaden Knott, I think now's the time, because you got to help Hawkins out. And, it kind of starts with Ott. I mean, you bring him in, you spend however much money. It wasn't cheap to bring him in, I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. And just so far, nothing. He didn't even take the field in that Auburn game. He had been returning kickoffs. He wasn't even doing kickoff return this past week. So I don't really know where we're at with the Jaden Ott situation. Well, you would think that this is the time, if any, to use him, because now you've got a true sophomore quarterback who's played in a few games and a true freshman running back in your backfield. I don't know that that's necessarily a recipe for success in the SEC. I think you need to get Jaden Ott involved more. And I mean, what better time than to really try to get this thing on the road than against Kent State in a couple weeks. And
listen, man, if he's 4 games into this, at some point, is he saying to them, like, this isn't working, and y'all are not going to burn my last year, and I'm going to go find something different that's gonna serve me better? I mean, Holden, you're 4 games into this. Kent State, I'd be stunned if they rolled him out for Kent State, right? And that's in a couple of weeks. And then, okay, you see what you're looking like. I mean, maybe he just says, all right, I want to go get an opportunity elsewhere rather than having my last year get burned by you throw me out for 4 games and then not being able to do anything after that.
Yeah, well, I think it is vital to get him on the field against Kent State because you need all the momentum you can get going into Texas with Michael Hawkins at quarterback. And you need him to feel confident going into that game because if anything from last year is that destroyed his confidence. You know, he had the good first game against Auburn that win, and then they get destroyed by Texas. He has the awful South Carolina game. You need to build up Hawkins' confidence as much as you can, and I think that helps by getting Jaden Ott going and the run game going, just to know that Hawkins doesn't have to do it all himself, which was maybe part of the problem last year is he maybe felt like he had to do too much himself because of all the injuries to the O-line, the wide receivers, and et cetera. I think you have to treat this Kent State game like it's an SEC game, and you gotta do everything to try and get these guys comfortable on the same page because the next game after that is Texas, and Texas is not going to take it easy on you just because you have a backup quarterback playing.
Absolutely. One of the things I found really interesting is the offense is stealing all the headlines, but in my opinion, last week was all about the defense and the defensive line, especially being able to get almost double-digit sacks there on Auburn. Do you expect that kind of production to continue? I know they've been playing really well, but do you expect that kind of production to continue and then be able to get at Arch Manning in the exact same way they got at Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, I think one of the things, too, that's interesting about this defense, they are statistically, I think, in the top 5 in the country right now. But Brian and I were talking about this week. They're the only team in the country that hasn't forced a turnover. OU's like -7 in turnover differential this year because the defense hasn't forced a single turnover, and maybe a safety should count as a turnover. But outside of that safety, they haven't forced any turnovers whatsoever.
I'm telling you right now, Holden, that's a sore subject. Gerhard and I were watching the game at a local place establishment, and we were watching the game, and we want to see our teams do well. We both have some ties to Auburn, and so whatever. I literally said out loud, and I shouldn't have. I was just cussing myself after this. I was like, if this guy takes a sack in the end zone and it ends like this, so help me, and sure as heck, just out of the sake of having a little bit of just too much about yourself, just get rid of it. Just throw the ball into the 5th section, 3rd row. I don't even care, but do not take a sack and a safety there. I was so triggered by that, Holden, and I literally had forgotten about it. And now on this Thursday at 3:34, you're bringing it back up, and it just opened up some fresh wounds. I don't like it.
In his own end zone in the stadium that he used to play in.
That's my point. I mean, they were like, you know that those guys were going to be coming with every single ounce they've had since they came out the womb of energy they were going to have to put into that moment to be able to put that dude on the soil, and they sure as heck did. I was so mad.
Yeah, I got some fun things, too, about that. So Jackson Arnold owns the record for most sacks as an OU quarterback and the quarterback most sacked by OU. So he owns the record for both of those. And also on that the safety, our Mason Thomas, the guy that sacked him in the end zone, told the other guys to take the play off. If you look at the other 3 defensive linemen, they didn't rush the quarterback at all.
Are you serious?
Oh, wow.
He looked at him in the huddle, and he goes, hey, guys, I got this. And so if you go back and watch it, it's just our Mason Thomas.
It's a
all the
one-man
other
rush.
three
It's
guys
a
just kinda
one-man
stand
rush.
there.
It's a one-man rush, and he held the ball for 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And he didn't even.
I don't think Auburn's O-line is as bad as everybody wants to say, because, I mean, you give up that many sacks, everybody wants to say something, but Jackson was holding the ball for at least 6 seconds.
Don't make me hit play on Monday's show, because I'm telling you right now, Holden, I was fired. I'm still mad about it, to be honest with you. There were times you can't even do that in 7-on-7, man. Someone need to be out there with a stopwatch and just say, all right, you're just taking a sack because you've been staring out and trying to make some read. I'm not trying to be ugly. That's ugly. But I'm just telling you, 4+ seconds, you should get sacked. I mean, dude, this is the SEC. I mean, Brent Venables, he knows what he's doing. He's going to dial it all up. And these guys are already fired up to get to the quarterback. I mean, get rid of the ball. Just throw it. I don't even care. Just throw it to anybody. Throw it to Coach Trees.
Yeah, and he's got good wide receivers, so just get him the ball some way.
Play basketball.
And maybe that's on the play calls too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it all happened right in front of me, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I got to see it right in front of me. So
I bet that was great.
Got a great shot.
And it came on the heels of you having to pull double duty of what happened to be a historic game for Oklahoma State. You didn't know that until a couple days later, but definitely a historic game for the Cowboys. We're gonna take a really quick break, Holden, and when we come back, discuss this situation with Mike Gundy that has come to a close after more than 2 decades there in Stillwater. We'll have that and much more here in just a couple minutes. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, going to take a step away from the Southeastern Conference to talk about some huge coaching news. One of the all-time well-known, well-respected coaches in college football, Mike Gundy, gets let go at Oklahoma State after falling to Tulsa. And who better to be chatting with this than the guy who was there watching this Tulsa game, and Holden Kruzmark. Holden, I want to go back to Friday. You're pulling double duty. I know that you went to Oklahoma State, you went to Oklahoma, just very, very busy weekend for you. When you saw the Cowboys lose that game, did any part of you think that what has taken place this week with the firing of Mike Gundy, like that was even on the radar of something that would happen? Was that a reality? What did you think?
Yeah, I expected it.
Really?
But I didn't expect it on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
that was kind of the that was the thing. Like after you lose to, and we were even talking about it before the game. It was like if they lose to, because this Tulsa team's not very good. That's kind of the thing. Is like if they lose to Tulsa, you kind of have to fire Mike. And maybe it's not immediate or but that's just kind of the nail in the coffin to me, is losing to Tulsa. But the fact that you mentioned is Friday night game, and they wait until Tuesday, that's really what kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah. And I want to ask you, like the way
I saw some rumory stuff that says something about they asked maybe to mutually part ways, and Gundy was like, no, you're going to get rid of me. Was that just like a random post that I saw, or was there any legitimacy to that? Have they unveiled any part of that?
Well, so there was a rumor that they had offered for Mike to stay on through the end of the season, and then he'd be able to retire. But then Chad Weiberg, the AD at OSU, said the other day that that wasn't on the table, that they didn't offer him to stay at all. They said, this is it.
Has he spoken to the media? Has he talked at all?
Chad Weiberg talked to the media on Tuesday.
Has Gundy?
Gundy, no. Gundy hasn't said anything since this all went down.
What's his legacy there in Stillwater? Because it feels so up and down, and obviously he came in and almost 18 years ago to the day where he had the I'm a man, I'm 40 comment, where he was just on fire backing up his players. He has a lot of NFL talent that has run through there. They have obviously championships. They beat Texas. They beat Oklahoma in Bedlam. But then also the end was really strange. What do you think overall Cowboy fans will remember about Mike Gundy?
Yeah, I think now that the end is here, I think people will remember it a little more fondly. It had kind of gotten a little bit toxic just in terms of, people. Gundy's a victim of his own success. You build Oklahoma State into this winner, this team that's, contending most years for a Big 12 championship. And then you go on to a 3-9 season the year after being in the Big 12 championship game. And then you start the season off by kind of scraping by against an FCS team. You get blown out at Oregon, and then you lose to Tulsa. Obviously, people weren't happy, and it just, after the Tulsa game, it felt inevitable that a change was going to happen. You just didn't know when it was going to happen. And, mentioning it, going to cover the OU game on Saturday, so I was doing a package for our Saturday show on, OSU. I recorded a backup of talk basically saying that Mike Gundy's been fired, because that's kind of where I expected it to go. And I kind of expected to wake up Saturday saying, to news that Mike Gundy had been fired as Oklahoma State's head coach. So that's kind of where I was thinking. But then once we made it through the weekend, he did his weekly press conference on Monday talking about Baylor and, answered all these questions and everything like that. Then you kind of think, okay, well, maybe they're going to let him have at least, a few more weeks, if not finish out the year and stuff like that. And then probably part ways if, maybe they finish the season 3-9 again, or whatever the case may be. And then, so the last thing I was expecting Tuesday morning was to see that they had fired him, just because. So that was kind of the stunning part of all of this, is just because, they play Baylor this Saturday. They host Baylor on Saturday, and to wait until Tuesday, especially when you played Friday night, you had the extra day. That's where it really didn't make sense.
Did the AD Did the AD ask that question? Did he answer that question? Was there anything divulged about the timing of that?
He basically just said it was the decision. So one of the interesting things too that you guys may not know about this is Chad Weiberg, the AD, was working without a contract. So he didn't have a contract at OSU. So the big question of all of this, he does now. So the big question
does now what, since Tuesday or something? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was announced the same day that Gundy got fired.
Shut
that
up. I was literally kidding.
He agreed to a new 4-year contract extension on Tuesday.
Okay, never mind. Question answered. I literally thought you were kidding.
No, and their OSU is an interim president right now, so it was kind of a big question mark.
Did he get a contract?
Okay, if you are going to find Gundy, and so it was like, who would do it if you're going to fire him? I mean, your AD's without a contract right now. Your president is an interim president. So who is in charge of firing Mike Gundy? And then you get the news that Weiberg's agreed to a new 4-year contract, and you're like, okay, maybe that was part of it.
What?
That they were waiting until, if you want me to fire him, give me a contract.
There's no was about it. There is no was about it. Someone said someone's got to get rid of this guy who's been here for 20 years and is well liked. I mean, he's well liked in terms of like coaching profession. People like the guy. I mean, they needed to probably rip the Band-Aid off and be done with it. But yeah, that was easy. They walked in and said, hey man, you want this 4-year deal? Get rid of him by Tuesday. Okay, done. No problem. That's how cutthroat it is in this business. There's no loyalty to nothing, dog. Wow.
Yeah. It's a crazy situation, and I don't really like the way that OSU handled it. Just the fact that you make Mike go out there Monday and talk to the media, do the coaches show and stuff like that. For a guy who's given you 21 great years to just, and you know, he was a player at OSU. He is OSU football. Since basically the 80s, mid 80s when he got to OSU to play quarterback. Basically ever since then, he's almost been involved with OSU football since then. There's a few years where he was at Maryland and whatever else, but this Saturday will be the first time that OSU has played a game without Mike Gundy on the sideline since 2000.
Wow.
And he came back as the offensive coordinator in 2001.
Right.
And then took over when Les Miles left.
I was literally about to say that.
LSU.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that. Their last two coaches, Les Miles and Mike Gundy. That said, where do you think the fan base wants to go as far as a name, or is it maybe somebody that is like an up-and-comer? What do you think the state of this program is to be able to get a guy to replace Mike Gundy? Like you said, Gundy replacing Les Miles and all the success that they've had in the future or in the past.
Yeah, and it's one of the things we've talked about is just that with, or at least, here in the state, is that firing Gundy is you open up a can of worms, because Oklahoma State now kind of becomes a stepping stone job. You're not going to find a guy like Mike Gundy who bleeds Oklahoma State and just this is his dream job and is able to have the success that he has. I think now it kind of becomes a stepping stone job where, you have some success, a couple years, and all of a sudden the Texas A&M job opens, or, LSU or whatever, and now the coach is leaving and you kind of got to start this process all over again, which is kind of the danger of, doing this. But it did feel like it was time to kind of move on. Obviously, it becomes kind of a difficult situation to figure out who is the right person to lead this job, because it seems like the OSU job has kind of fallen in the ranks of college football coaching jobs based off of where,
Yeah, and hold it in. I would also add in there.
After the 23 season, it was pretty close up to the top, and now it's just been dropping steadily ever since then.
And take the talent off the board, okay? Take the talent off the board. Take the what the job is off the board. The job still is under Chad Weiber, okay? So everyone who is going to go look at that position is going to know that they just screwed Mike Gundy and said, hey, man, like, you're out after 21 years on a random Tuesday so he can get a 4-year deal. What's that bad coach? Because you know what? Sign me up. I want him to be my boss. I want to go work for that guy. I mean, like, coaching is a brotherhood. I mean, make no mistake. You keep receipts on things like that. And money certainly is important, but when you're looking to change the game overnight, and bring in a coach and make it all happen, you want to be able to bring in a jam-up coach who can recruit, do all these things. If coaches are in a good spot and they feel like they like their bosses, they like their setup there, no one's going to go want to sign up for Chad Weiber and his Tuesday firing so we can get a 4-year deal on Wednesday. What? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And one of the things, too, is there just seems to be a lack of alignment at Oklahoma State from the Board of Regents. I mean, over the offseason, there was the rumor that they were going to fire Gundy then if he didn't, concede to reworking his contract and giving money back and stuff like that. So it's kind of a whole interesting situation where it feels like, from the interim president, the AD that didn't have a contract, the Board of Regents, there just was no alignment. And it's tough to really tell whether what the OSU's true NIL backing is, because Gundy was pretty hesitant for a while to want to go out and spend a bunch of money on NIL to get players and stuff. He said this was the first year that they've ever bought a roster, and maybe not a great purchase based on the results so far. But yeah, so it's interesting to see what the NIL backing is, because that plays a lot into a coach's decision whether you want to go to a place or not, whether they have the resources needed to be able to go out and field a contending team or not. And, if you're going to fire Gundy after all of this, and, I wouldn't imagine the leash is very long for any new coach that they hire. So if you don't have any immediate success, you could be gone in a couple years
before his 4-year deal is up. Maybe about 4 years when he needs to get his re-signed.
Yeah.
Chad Weaver.
But for OSU fans, the number one candidate for everybody is Zach Robinson. He used to be quarterback at OSU in the early Gundy days. He's the Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator right now. and he's kind of had a lot of success in the NFL. He got started with the Rams a few years ago and parlayed that into the Falcons of OC job. So people have kind of seen the success he had back, coaching quarterbacks with the Rams and everything else. And so that's the name that everybody wants. However, I don't think it's a very realistic one, just in terms of today's college football landscape. You need a coach to go from day one, and with the NFL landscape, the fact that the Falcons season won't be over until January at the earliest, that doesn't really work in terms of becoming a college football head coach and hitting the ground running in the portal and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's everybody's dream, is that it would be Zach Robinson. I don't think it's realistic though. And I also kind of think that OSU would maybe tend to, find somebody that has some head coaching experience, maybe at a lower level or wherever else. One name that I've kind of liked, and this is just my own opinion, is Billy Napier. I think he's going to get fired at Florida, and I think that would be a good pick to.
Just as I need to be tossing the break, Holden's sitting here saying wild things on this program right now. That's strong.
I mean, what do you think? Do you think Billy's going to survive at Florida?
Oh no, absolutely not. I shouldn't think he was going to go there either. But honestly, I mean,
I thought he'd be radioactive after getting canned at Florida.
I think it would be a good situation. I mean, he's proven
refresher.
that he can do it with low budget, at Louisiana and stuff. He's been a good recruiter at Florida. It just hasn't really worked out. I think that could be a good fit, in terms of a guy that maybe wouldn't be looking to just jump up at the next, at the first opportunity that comes that's a little bit bigger, just because he's been at Florida and has potentially been fired from Florida, that he may be willing to stick it out a little bit longer at OSU. I kind of think it would just be a good fit just based off of that.
Holden, all I know is that if and when that day comes, I can promise you who our first phone call to come on this show is going to be. And that will be you. There is no doubt. Holden Cruzmark holding it down for us as always there at Oklahoma City. Thanks so much, sir, for your time. I know we went a little long today, but man, great insight not only on Oklahoma, but also there on Oklahoma State as well. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you.
All right. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Billy Napier.
Billy Napier. When he mentioned, hey, it's a low budget, I thought,
hold on a budget.
I thought number one, he's right, but also two, that's how far Oklahoma State's expectations have fallen. Like where it's like, hey, can we just survive and win 8-9 games?
Dude,
like it's sort of there.
I mean, admittedly, I do not follow whatever conference they're in now. I'm just kidding, but honestly, the fact that AD said deuces, Gundy, I'm getting my deal done. That's strong, man. It's cutthroat, man.
Everybody's in job protection mode. He's gonna cut the guy, and the next guy's gonna be like, "See you."
I thought he was kidding. I was like, "Did he get his deal?" Yeah. I'm like, "What?" I was still shocked by that. We're gonna go to break real quick, and we'll come back to say goodbye. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, wrapping things up after a very eventful couple of hours here. Appreciate Holden and Mike for coming on and with the extended segments from Lane Kiffin to who knows, Billy Napier to OSU.
A lot of coach talk here, and we're as these job openings start to come about, everybody starts ranking them.
Yep.
And I think Oklahoma State will be one of those ones that everybody's looking out for.
Will we have a job situation in the SEC before the end of the season? Guys, thoughts?
Billy Napier.
I still think Florida keeps them through the end of the year.
I don't think there's nothing to lose in there. So,
yeah.
Anyways. All right, guys. Thanks for a great week. We will see you back here on Southeast Sports Plus. Week 5 of the season is here. Have a good one.